never irate mothers, confused parent-teachers associations. They are isolated cases.
For decades, the Three Stooges made America laugh with their slapstick antics and outrageous comedy. But 1 week before his death, Moe Howard, the group's tough-talking leader, revealed a heartbreaking truth about his brother Curly. And what he said wasn't funny at all. It was dark, painful, and it shattered the image fans thought they knew. The Three Stooges were more than just a comedy act. They were an institution. For over 40 years, Moe, Larry, and Curly brought laughter to millions, their outrageous physical gags making them legends of Hollywood's golden age. But behind the pratfalls and the pie fights was a story of pain, sacrifice, and tragedy. And no Stooge's life was more tragic than that of Jerome "Curly" Howard, the youngest of the Howard brothers. His wild energy and lovable innocence made him the most popular Stooge. But off-camera, his personal demons slowly consumed him. For decades, Moe stayed silent about the full extent of Curly's struggles. He was protective of his brother, shielding the world from the darker side of the man who made millions laugh. But as Moe neared the end of his own life in 1975, he finally broke his silence, and the truth he revealed left fans stunned. So what did Moe confess about Curly? And why did he wait until the very end to say it? To understand, we need to start at the beginning, with a family of brothers destined for both fame and heartbreak. The Howard family grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the early 1900s. They weren't wealthy, and like many immigrant families of the time, they worked hard just to survive. Moe Howard, born Moses Horwitz in 1897, was a born performer. From an early age, he loved entertaining friends with pratfalls and impressions. His brothers shared that same spark, but none more than the youngest, Jerome, nicknamed Babe, long before he became Curly. The brothers' journey into show business wasn't glamorous. Moe started on vaudeville stages, struggling for years before the Stooges found their big break. Jerome, however, took a different path. Unlike his brothers, he didn't plan to become a performer. In fact, Jerome was shy, soft-spoken, and self-conscious. But when the original Stooge, Shemp Howard, left the act, Moe insisted on bringing in Jerome. At first, Jerome was reluctant. He even shaved his head to appear funnier, giving birth to the iconic bald, childlike look we now associate with Curly. What no one could have predicted was that Jerome, the reluctant Stooge, would become the most beloved of them all. His high-pitched voice, silly catchphrases, and physical comedy made him a sensation. To audiences, Curly was pure joy. But behind the laughter, Jerome was struggling with insecurities that would only grow worse as fame consumed him. So how did the man who made the world laugh fall so deeply into despair? At the height of their fame in the 1930s and 1940s, the Three Stooges were everywhere. Their short films played in theaters across America, and Curly quickly became the star. His antics, from barking like a dog to spinning in circles on the floor, captured hearts like no comedian before him. But while fans adored him, Curly was privately crumbling. His insecurities about his looks, his failed marriages, and his relentless work schedule drove him to alcohol, overeating, and reckless living. Moe, the leader of the group, often tried to rein him in, but the pressures of Hollywood only made things worse. By the mid-1940s, Curly's health was deteriorating rapidly. Years of indulgence and exhaustion took their toll. In 1946, during the filming of Half-Wit's Holiday, Curly suffered a massive stroke. He was just 42 years old. The tragedy was devastating, not just for the fans, but for Moe himself. His younger brother, the man he had fought to bring into the act, was suddenly gone from the stage, and soon gone from the world. Curly spent the last years of his life in poor health, passing away in 1952 at only 48 years old. For decades after, Moe rarely spoke of the details. He stayed quiet, protecting his brother's image as the clown who made millions laugh. But in his final days, Moe finally revealed what really happened behind the curtain. And the truth wasn't funny at all. For decades after Curly's passing in 1952, Moe Howard carried a heavy burden. To the world, Curly remained the lovable clown, the wide-eyed, innocent child trapped in a man's body who could make anyone laugh with a simple "nyuk nyuk nyuk." Fans never saw the toll that fame, stress, and personal demons had taken on him. And that was because Moe made sure they didn't. Moe wasn't just the leader of the Three Stooges on screen, he was the protector off-screen. He knew how much people adored Curly, and he didn't want to tarnish that image. So, he stayed silent. He didn't talk about the nights he spent worrying as Curly drank himself into oblivion. He didn't reveal how many times he had to cover for Curly on set, smoothing things over with directors when his brother arrived late, sick, or barely able to perform. He didn't talk about how heartbroken he was to see his little brother, once so full of life, reduced to a shell of himself by the mid-1940s. Instead, Moe carried it all inside. He continued to perform, first with Shemp returning to the act, and later with Joe Besser and Curly Joe DeRita. But in private, the pain never left him. Every time he stepped on stage, every time he barked an order at Larry or poked another stooge in the eyes, Moe was haunted by the memory of Curly. He saw the joy that audiences still felt watching old shorts, and he knew the truth. The man who gave them that joy had lived a much darker reality. Why then did Moe wait so long to finally tell the world? Perhaps it was love. Perhaps it was guilt. Or perhaps, as some believe, Moe feared that the truth about Curly would destroy the magic that had kept the Stooges alive in the hearts of fans. Whatever the reason, Moe's silence lasted more than 2 decades. And then, in 1975, 1 week before his own death, Moe broke that silence. And what he revealed stunned everyone who had ever loved the Stooges. In April 1975, Moe Howard was nearing the end of his life. He had been battling lung cancer, a disease that slowly robbed him of his strength, but not his sharp mind. Surrounded by family and reflecting on a career that spanned more than 50 years, Moe knew his time was running out. And for the first time, he chose to speak openly about his brother Curly. In his final interviews and conversations, Moe stripped away the comedy and revealed the pain. He admitted that Curly's life had been far from the happy-go-lucky image fans adored. He spoke about Curly's crushing insecurities, how Jerome hated being bald, how he often felt unattractive and unworthy, and how that self-doubt drove him into destructive habits. Moe described how Curly's marriages had failed, one after another, leaving him lonely and desperate for love. He admitted that Curly turned to alcohol to numb the pain, often drinking before performances just to summon the energy to go on. And he revealed the guilt he carried as the older brother, watching Curly destroy himself while feeling powerless to stop it. Perhaps the most shocking part of Moe's confession was the anger he still carried. Not at Curly, but at the industry. Hollywood had chewed his brother up and spat him out. The grueling schedule of filming dozens of shorts a year left Curly no time to rest or recover. The studios cared about profits, not people, and by the time Curly collapsed on set in 1946, he was already a broken man. Moe's voice cracked as he admitted that he wished he had done more to save his brother. He confessed that he sometimes wondered if the Stooges were worth the cost, if the laughter of millions had been bought at the price of his brother's life. And then came the most haunting part. Moe admitted that even after Curly's death, he avoided watching the old shorts. To fans, they were hilarious. To Moe, they were painful reminders of the brother he loved, the brother he lost, and the brother whose tragedy he could never erase. 1 week later, Moe Howard was gone. But his final words about Curly changed the way the world viewed the Three Stooges forever. So what did this confession mean for the legacy of the Stooges? And how did fans react when they finally learned the heartbreaking truth behind the laughs? When news of Moe's final words began to circulate, it stunned longtime fans of the Three Stooges. For decades, Curly had been remembered as the heart of the act, the innocent, lovable clown who could make a room erupt in laughter with nothing more than a silly sound or a goofy expression. To many, he represented joy itself. But now, for the first time, fans were faced with the darker truth, that behind every pratfall was a man in pain. For many, it was a sobering reminder that comedy often hides tragedy. Letters poured in from admirers around the world. Some expressed heartbreak, saying they wished they had known Curly's struggles while he was alive so they could have shown him more love. Others were angry at the Hollywood machine that pushed him past his breaking point. Many admitted that it changed the way they watched old shorts. The laughter now tinged with sadness, knowing what it had cost Curly. The revelations also sparked a wider conversation about the pressures faced by entertainers. At a time when the darker side of Hollywood was rarely discussed publicly, Moe's words shed light on the toll fame could take on vulnerable individuals. Curly wasn't just a clown. He was a man chewed up by an industry that valued output over well-being. Still, Moe's confession didn't diminish Curly's legacy. If anything, it deepened it. Fans began to see him not just as a comic genius, but as a tragic figure, someone who gave everything he had, even when it cost him his health, his happiness, and ultimately his life. But if Curly's story was tragic, what did it mean for the legacy of the Stooges themselves? Could their comedy survive the knowledge of the pain behind the curtain? Even decades after his death, Curly Howard remains the most beloved Stooge. His childlike innocence, his boundless energy, and his knack for physical comedy made him an icon of American entertainment. But thanks to Moe's confession, that legacy took on new weight. To fans, Curly was no longer just a comic character. He was a symbol of sacrifice. Every laugh he gave came at a cost. Every gag a reminder of the toll it took on his body and his spirit. Film historians have argued that Curly's style of comedy was unmatched. Unlike Moe, who played the tough guy, or Larry, who played the fall guy, Curly embodied pure chaos. He didn't just act funny, he was funny. His timing, his facial expressions, and his ability to turn any situation into comedy made him irreplaceable. And yet, as Moe revealed, this brilliance came from a man who was deeply insecure. Fans began to rewatch the shorts with a new perspective. That high-pitched voice, those wild spins, the childlike antics, they weren't just funny. They were also a mask, hiding the pain of a man who never felt good enough. Curly's tragic story also reshaped how people viewed the Stooges as a whole. It reminded audiences that comedy, at its core, often comes from suffering, that the men who made millions laugh were themselves battling demons the audience never saw. But if Curly's legacy was one of tragedy wrapped in laughter, Moe's confession also forced people to ask a haunting question. Did Moe blame himself for his brother's downfall? And if so, how did he carry that guilt until his dying breath? For audiences, Moe Howard was the tough guy of the act, the one dishing out eye pokes, slaps, and punches. But behind that persona was a man carrying immense guilt. After Curly's death, Moe often admitted to close friends that he wondered if he could have done more. As the eldest brother, Moe had always been the leader, not just on screen, but off. He was the one who pushed the Stooges forward, the one who kept the act alive through changing times and countless setbacks. But that responsibility also meant he felt accountable for what happened to Curly. Moe would replay the moments in his mind, the times he brushed off Curly's exhaustion, the times he insisted they keep performing despite his brother's failing health. He knew Curly's antics brought in the crowds, and he feared that stopping the act would ruin everything they had built. But the price was too high. And decades later, Moe still carried the weight of wondering whether the laughter of millions had been worth the suffering of his brother. This guilt wasn't something Moe spoke about publicly until the very end, but those who knew him privately could see it written in his eyes. Every time he cracked a smile on stage, there was a shadow behind it, a reminder that the act that made him famous also destroyed the person he loved most. So when Moe finally broke his silence 1 week before his death, it wasn't just about revealing Curly's struggles. It was about unburdening himself, admitting that the joy the Stooges brought to the world had come at a cost he would carry forever. But Moe's confession also marked something larger, the end of an era, because without Curly, without Shemp, and without Moe, the Three Stooges would never be the same again. By the time Moe passed away in 1975, the golden age of the Three Stooges was already long gone. Larry Fine, his lifelong partner in comedy, had suffered a debilitating stroke just a few years earlier. Shemp had passed in the 1950s, Curly in 1952, and Curly Joe DeRita was retired. The act that had once dominated theaters and television was now only a memory, preserved in reruns and old reels. For fans, Moe's death was the final curtain call. It was as if the last living link to a beloved chapter of American comedy had vanished. And yet, thanks to television syndication, the Stooges never truly disappeared. Generations of children continued to laugh at their antics, even as the men themselves faded into history. But Moe's final confession changed the way audiences viewed their legacy. The Stooges were no longer just the clowns of slapstick comedy. They were also a story of human cost, of how fame and relentless work could break even the strongest spirits. The end of the Stooges wasn't marked by a final performance, but by the loss of the brothers who had made it all possible. With Moe gone, so too was the guiding force that had kept the team together for nearly half a century. And yet, even in death, Moe left something lasting. His words about Curly, though heartbreaking, gave fans a deeper understanding of who the Stooges really were. They weren't just comedians. They were men, brothers, flawed and fragile, who gave everything they had to make the world laugh. The question that remained was haunting. Now that the truth was out, how would history remember them? As timeless clowns, or as tragic figures who sacrificed themselves for comedy? Behind the laughter of the Three Stooges was a darker reality. Hollywood had squeezed every drop of profit from them while giving little in return. The Stooges' shorts were made quickly and cheaply. They filmed dozens each year, often under grueling conditions. Moe, Larry, and Curly were not given the luxury of rest, nor were they paid royalties for the endless reruns that kept Columbia Pictures swimming in profits. The truth was devastating. While their films made millions for the studios, the Stooges themselves earned modest salaries. They weren't treated as stars. They were treated as disposable labor. When they aged or when one of them fell ill, the studio simply replaced them with another comedian and kept the machine running. Curly, in particular, suffered under this system. His health was already fragile, yet the relentless schedule left him no time to recover. He was pushed to perform, even when it was clear his body and spirit were breaking down. The stroke that ended his career was not just the result of bad luck. It was the result of an industry that valued money over people. Moe's confession in his final week highlighted this injustice. For decades, he had stayed silent, protecting the image of the Stooges. But deep down, he knew that Hollywood had chewed up his brother and discarded him. By speaking out, Moe wasn't just telling Curly's story. He was condemning a system that exploited comedians, drained them dry, and left them forgotten once the cameras stopped rolling. And in that truth lies perhaps the most important question. Was the laughter of millions worth the suffering of the men who created it? Moe Howard's final confession wasn't meant to destroy Curly's legacy. It was meant to complete it. For too long, fans had only seen one side of the story: the joy, the laughter, the childlike energy that Curly brought to the screen. But Moe wanted people to see the man behind the act. The lesson was sobering. Even the brightest stars can be consumed by their demons. Even the funniest men can be hiding deep pain. And sometimes, the entertainment we take for granted comes at a cost that is invisible to the audience. For Moe, speaking the truth was a way of honoring his brother, not by hiding his flaws, but by acknowledging them, by showing the world that Curly wasn't just a clown. He was a human being who struggled, who suffered, and who still gave everything he had to make people smile. The honesty also reshaped how people remembered the Stooges as a whole. No longer just cartoonish buffoons, they became tragic heroes of comedy. Men who endured exploitation, personal demons, and public misunderstanding, yet still managed to create timeless art. And that's the greatest lesson of Moe's words. Laughter is powerful, but so is truth. By breaking his silence, Moe gave fans a deeper appreciation for the sacrifices behind the comedy. He showed that behind every eye poke, every slap, every pratfall, there was a story of resilience, of love, and of heartbreak. The Three Stooges were legends. Their comedy has spanned generations, making children laugh in the 1930s, the 1970s, and even today. But Moe's final words peeled back the curtain on the tragedy behind the act. Curly Howard wasn't just the funniest stooge, he was also the most fragile. His demons, his insecurities, and the relentless pressure of Hollywood broke him long before his time. And Moe, the older brother who had always protected him, carried the guilt until his own final days. 1 week before his death, Moe finally told the world the truth. It was raw, it was heartbreaking, and it was a reminder that even legends are human. So what do we take from their story? Perhaps it's this: laughter is precious, but it is never free. Behind the joy that entertains millions are often lives filled with sacrifice and pain. Curly gave the world his brilliance, and Moe gave us his truth. Together, their story is one of comedy and tragedy, forever intertwined. What do you think? Does knowing Moe's final confession change the way you see the Stooges? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories of the legends you thought you knew. Because sometimes the biggest laughs come from the deepest pain.